Salvete! Welcome to this video lesson on Fabulae Syrae 28, section 5 it is, our last section, the story of Alcestis or Alcestis in Latin. And we're in the second page of this story at line 313. Tum Alcestis, quae admetum totum rem narantim parentesque se nole pro eo mori dicintes ex audiverat. Then Alcestis, who, notice the quae is feminine because Alcestis is a woman, Admetus' wife. Then Alcestis, who had heard, ex audiverat, pluperfect, Admetus telling the whole thing, admetum narantim totum rem, and his parents saying, parentesque dicintes, and then we get the part in quotations, that they did not want to die for him. Se noli mori pro eo. Okay? And then returning to the Latin, O admete de dilectissime conjunx, O Admetus, most beloved spouse. Inquit, she says, Te plusquam vita meam amo, I love you more than, plusquam, my life, vita meam. I might note here, Alcestis' name is from alce, which is a word for strength or power in Latin. Alcaius, a related word, is supposedly the name of Hercules' grandfather. Also, Alcaius sometimes is used as a title for Hercules. So Hercules is going to come into the story because he's going to save Alcestis. But it's interesting that Alcestis, her name actually is related to these names that have to do with Hercules being this strong, powerful person. So in a way, she's kind of like a female version of him here. And he's going to value her very much. All right, but let's get back to what she does for her husband, who, as we find out, his parents will not help him. And what does she do? She says, I love you more than my life. Sine mora paratissima sum ad moriendum. Without delay, sine mora, I am very ready, paratissima, to die, ad moriendum. Now, ad moriendum is a gerund phrase. Gerund phrase with in or odd plus the accusative gerund shows purpose. You can also show purpose with causa or gratia plus the genitive of the gerund. Like, for example, moriendi causa would mean essentially the same thing as ad moriendum. Okay, so without delay, I am very ready to die. Plutonis regnum pro te petam. I will seek, petam is the ameset future. I will seek the kingdom of Pluto for you, pro te. Unde negant redire quimquam, from which or from where they deny anyone can return or prevent or refuse anyone to return. Hoc unum tamen te rogo, nevertheless I ask you this one thing, ut liberos nostros etiam post mortem meam bene cures edoceas. All right, and the ut clause here is what she's asking him to do, so it's an indirect command. She's sort of telling him this, he needs to do this, that you should take care, well, bene cures, of our children, liberos nostros, even after my death, and you should teach them et doceas. Oro quoque, I also ask, ne mei quae tantum te amavi obliviscaris, that you not forget, ne obliviscaris, me. Now notice that mei, the me here, is the genitive case. Verbs of remembering and forgetting, so like memini and obliviscor, these verbs take the genitive for the person that you remember or forget in Latin quite frequently. They can sometimes take accusative, but frequently the genitive for the person. So I ask also that you not forget me, ne obliviscaris mei. And then the quae clause describes me here, and of course the me is Alcestis. that you not forget me who have loved you only, or you could say have loved you so much. Remember, tantum can mean only or so much. Either way sounds good here. All right, and in 321, postquam Alcestis talia dixit, after Alcestis has said such things, or just simply said such things, mors adveniens, death arriving, eam raptam ad mortuorum regnum secum traxit. He dragged her, having been captured, eam raptam, with him, secum, to the kingdom of the dead. Servi et ancillae, the slaves and the slave women, marentes, grieving, amisam dominum, quam omnes amabant, diu multumque fleverunt, wept for their lost mistress, fleverunt, amisam dominum, whom they all loved, quam omnes amabant. And then we get the adverbs diu multumque, for a long time and a lot. All right, so they wept for a long time and a lot for their lost mistress, whom they all loved. 325, moxvero Hercules, but soon Hercules, virorum fortissimus, the most brave or the most strong of men, bravest, strongest of men, mortalis feminae et Jovis filius, the son of a mortal woman and Jove, or remember Jove is the same as Jupiter or Zeus, qui per Thessaliam erabat, who was wandering through Thessaly. Okay, so Hercules was on his way through Thessaly, where Admetus and Alcestis lived. Ad regiam admeti perveniens, arriving at the palace of Admetus, postulavit a rege, demanded from the king. Now, here again, he's asking him to do something. So note we go into an ut clause of indirect command. Demanded from the king that, ut, sibi feso cibum vinumque daret, that he give him tired, that is to say, Hercules is tired, because he's been journeying, that he give him tired, sibi feso, food, cibum, and wine, vinumque. All right, and then in 329, Admetus, etiam se ipse maxime maerebat, Admetus, even if he himself was especially grieved or gloomy, sad, ob uxores mortem, on account of the death of his wife, nihil tamen de ea re dixit, nevertheless he said nothing de ea re about that thing, sed servis imperavit, but he ordered to his slaves, ut cibum, and now here we've got another indirect command clause, he ordered to his slaves, ut, that, cibum et vinum optimum ad mensam afferent, that they should bring food and the best wine, perhaps the best food and wine, I think that can go with both, ad mensam, to the table. Ipse vero poposcit, he himself, however, demanded ab Hercule, from Hercules, ut seneret se ire dormitum, that he allow him, and here notice this ut clause is another indirect command, he demanded from Hercules that he allow him, the se of course is referring to Admetus, to go to sleep, ire dormitum. Now, dormitum is the accusative supine, and remember supine can always just be translated to verb, so to go to sleep. Ire is just the infinitive to go, dormitum the accusative supine, to sleep. All right, atque discessit, and he left. All right, and that's referring to Admetus, who is going away after he has instructed the slaves. Dum autem est et bibit. However, while he was eating and drinking, anamadvertit Hercules, Hercules noticed, and let me just pause for a moment here to talk about the tenses. Est and bibit, of course, are present tense verbs. But in a doom clause, if the main verb is past tense, and here anamad vertit is a perfect tense, then you can translate those present tenses in the doom clause as if they were past. So, however, while he was eating and drinking, Hercules noticed, anamad vertit, Anquilas servosque tristissimos esse, that the maidservants and the manservants were very sad, tristissimos, superlative, ac lacrimare, and were crying, cuius rei causam interrogat, the cause of which thing he asks. All right, so he asks the cause of which thing. So why are you doing this? It, of course, is basically the sense of his question. All right, qui de dominae suae morte naraverunt. The qui, of course, literally means who, but this is what's called a connecting relative. So a lot of times when you get this who or which at the beginning of the Latin clause, beginning of the Latin sentence, we'll just say they or he or she in the singular. All right, so qui naraverunt, they told de dominae suae morte, about the death of their mistress. All right, and here's a quotation. Nescis tu, you don't know, inquiunt, they say, mala quae sunt in hac domo, the evil things, the bad things, mala, that's a neuter plural, which are in this house. All right, Dominus enim noster, for our master, nihil tibi dixit, said nothing to you, ne animum tuum turbaret. Now this ne clause is a negative purpose clause. In purpose clauses, like in indirect commands, we have ut or ne. Ne makes the negative, ut makes the positive. So he said nothing to you, ne animum tuum turbaret, so that he would not disturb your mind. In other words, make you upset. He didn't want to bother you with it. Conjunx admeti periit. The spouse of Admetus has died, has perished. Qui tamen ne cogereris aliam domum invenire te excapit. Nevertheless, he. Now notice qui again literally means who, but because it's the beginning of the sentence, in English we would prefer to say he or that guy, and of course the qui refers to Admetus. Nevertheless, he received you, te excapit, and here we have another negative purpose clause, ne cogereris aliam domum invenire, so that you would not be forced or compelled, driven to find, invenire, another home, aliam domum. Atque nobis imperavit, and he ordered us, ut, and here this ut clause is going to be another indirect command, ut tibi hospiti omni honore digno, quibus opponeremus, that we should set out for you a guest, hospiti, worthy, digno, of all honor, omni honore.
Middle school is now
Quibus,
time to move to the
foods.
next class. Time to move to the next class, please.
Now, I will note here, omni honore, of all honor, worthy of all honor. Dignus takes an ablative usually, occasionally a genitive, but usually an ablative for the thing that you're worthy of. All right, so that we set out for you to be a guest, hospiti, worthy, digno, of all honor. Notice we say of in English, but again, normally you're going to have that in the ablative case as here with omni honore. So that we set out for you a guest worthy of all honor, foods, kibos. Ille vero, but he, uxorem mortuam, in cubiculo suo fled. He is weeping for his dead wife in his bedroom. Hercules igitur surgens, therefore Hercules getting up, magna voce clamat, shouts in a big, or in other words, loud voice, ad imperos descendam, I will descend, I will go down to the dead, to the underworld, ad inferi. So the inferi are literally the people down below, but a lot of times this word, and here inferos, of course, is the accusative, because ad takes the accusative. But the inferi, the people down below, often are used in reference to the place itself. So you can translate to the underworld, to the land of the dead, if you wish. I will descend to the underworld, ubi cum morte ipsa pugnabo, where I will fight with death itself. Now, ipsa is feminine because mors is a feminine word, the word for death in Latin. In Greek, thanatos, death is masculine in Greek. So it's a funny little thing when you change from Latin to Greek that the gender changes here. So where I will fight with death itself, or if you want to say himself, that's fine. Again, in mors is feminine in Latin, but in Greek, thanatos, the word for the god of death, is masculine, and he's imagined to be a man. All right, and then we get an ut clause, and this is going to be a purpose clause. Ut victa tam probam feminam marito vivisque redat. In order that conquered, and notice victa is feminine because we're talking about death being conquered. Hercules is going to go down and beat up death, in other words, to get her back. In order that conquered, he should return, redat, so decent a woman, tam probam feminam, to her husband, marito, and to the living, vivisque. Nolite temere, don't be afraid. Mox reginam ad regiam reducam. Soon I will lead back or return, reducam, the queen, reginam, to the palace, ad regiam. There's a lot of R's in that sentence. All right, final paragraph. Hoc locutus, having said these things, and notice that that is masculine. Locutus is a masculine participle because this is describing Hercules. So having said these things, relictis servis, with the slaves left behind, it's an ablative absolute, ad Plutonis regnum cucurit, he ran to Pluto's kingdom. He just took off trucking it down to the underworld. Ubi mortem fortissime opugnatam vicit, where he conquered, vicit, death, mortem, having been very strongly or very bravely attacked. Fortissime opugnatam. Atque Alcestis ad conjugem suum, qui vix oculi suis credebat, reduxit. And, atque, he brought back Alcestis, reduxit Alcestis, to her spouse, ad conjugem suum, and again that would be admetus, qui vix oculi suis credebat, who scarcely believed his own eyes. Well, that brings us to the end of the story. So I hope, as always, that you learned a few things here, maybe some new words, vocabulary, or reinforced old ones. Maybe you learned some more about grammar. We got a lot of indirect commands and purpose clauses in this particular chapter with the ut or ne. Maybe about some of the cases that we mentioned, or maybe just about the myth here. It's an interesting myth. I've always thought that Alcestis is a much more decent person than her husband. I mean, what husband just says, "Oh, sure, wife, you just go ahead and die for me. It's great." I think he's kind of, he's supposed to be this wonderful person that the gods love, but he just lets his wife die for him. I don't know. I don't like him very much. And Alcestis, she's a very interesting character, very brave, and much more admirable than Admetus himself. And I think Hercules recognizes that, and I think it's, again, interesting that her name, Alcestis, kind of alludes to Hercules' Alcae, his strength, and again, Alcaeus is one of his titles and is also supposedly his grandfather in some of the versions. So I think there's a very close connection between Alcestis and Hercules in the sort of understood background of the story, right? That the intelligent people are supposed to understand here. Valete omnes.